but this is an important issue. So, welcome.
Well, good evening.
You can lift the mic up.
Yeah. My name is Bruce or Art Hansen, and it was quite a coincidence that this vehicle arrived in Davis at this very near the same time that sensational events occurred in Ferguson, Missouri. And then a few days later, the Davis community at large became aware of the existence of this vehicle in Davis, which was, in a word, a shock. I'm not here to talk about the intended police use of this vehicle, but I think there would be a good use of this vehicle in an artistic use, to use it for live drama, photography, videography, in order to improve the community understanding of awareness of issues around this vehicle. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, I have a lot more than 2 minutes to say, but I'm Mason Harry. And I forget who said the quote, but the quote goes that propaganda is the art of getting people to forget other people are human. And when we look into that and we realize that we're all human, we stop believing in good guys and bad guys and civilians and just we're all humans. I really have to shorten this up, but basically if you look any time throughout history with terrorists and even with these mass shootings and with gang violence, when one group of people gets a significant amount of arms over another group of people, you tend to see civilians dying, you tend to see tyranny. And if we want to look at the numbers, you know, with mass shooters, from 1998 to now, a 16-year period, less than 500 people have been killed by mass shooters. Where if you look from 2003 to right now, 11-year period, 5,000 Americans have been killed by police officers. And what makes that number really, really scary is 2003 is the magic number, because as of December 12th of last year, the number of Americans killed by police officers surpassed the number of Americans killed by terrorists in the war in Afghanistan. And these are people armed with AK-47s, bombs, rocket launchers, and still couldn't manage to get the body count that our police in this country have gotten. Unfortunately, I don't have other sections, so I'm going to skip over a lot of things, but I believe a good solution for this is, since you can't give the vehicle back, is to repurpose it for fire. I mean, it even has a turret. You can put a water cannon on it. We have labs in Davis. We have gas stations that can get lit on fire, and it'd be nice for firefighters to use the mine resistance property of this vehicle to protect them from exploding buildings, rather than police officers to, you know, use it for drug raids, which is what we're going to see this vehicle being used. I can almost guarantee it. So that's all the time I have, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Mason. Say hello to your mother, Rochelle, for us when you're...
Hi, my name is Alyssa Johns.
It's Councilmember Rochelle's son,
I've been
by
an
the way.
East Davis resident since 1985. I have a son in Davis High School. I have not been here frequently, but I feel compelled to speak out today. I recognize the need for a SWAT team in the city. I realize the dangers faced by our police officers, and yet I would encourage our city to put greater emphasis on mental health issues and gun control, rather than trying to protect our officers in this kind of a way. There is a pressure to use equipment once the city has invested in the training and in the maintenance. There will be a need to justify keeping such a vehicle, and just calling it a rescue vehicle does not change the fact of the fact that it can't do the kind of maneuvering that an officer on the ground can do to solve situations. It's a big thing that just moves in without subtlety. And I wonder what kind of an example it sets for our kids for anger management and conflict resolution when we send in a big vehicle rather than wanting just to talk things out face to face. I realize that there are obviously limitations to that under certain circumstances, but there are other kinds of armor available. Have we not learned from the pepper spraying incident on the UC Davis campus that less confrontational methods of policing are perhaps more desirable? And as a taxpayer, I do not relish the idea of my money supporting the militarization of our police force, which I believe should aim to be a peace force and committed to community safety and community building, as opposed to taking over the functions of our armed services. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Naomi Williams. I live in Davis. I have 2 children here. I'm a writer, and I'm also co-president of the Yolo County chapter of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. I'm here as a private citizen today, not in that role in particular. The Brady Campaign doesn't, in fact, have a position on mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicles. Nevertheless, because the rationale for this vehicle has, the gun violence is like the rationale for having this vehicle here, I felt like I should come talk about it. I actually very much appreciate the police chief coming and showing us these pictures and talking about the acquisition of this war machine. And if anything could persuade me that we actually do need a chapter of the Brady Campaign in Yolo County, these pictures, so thank you. My understanding is that these vehicles were designed to help reduce casualties and fatalities among our military personnel in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where they were being blown up by mines and being ambushed. I don't think these things are happening very often in Davis, although I appreciated the police chief's presentation about the proposed uses of this vehicle. When I think back to what I know about Newtown, about the Sikh temple, about Santa Barbara, about the many horrible instances of active shooter situations in our country, I'm hard-pressed to figure out how having one of these vehicles would have helped in that situation. I'm not so naive to think that we won't have one of those things happen in Davis. Whenever something like that happens, people say, how could that happen in our town? This is exactly the sort of town where something like that could happen. I appreciate that our police officers actually care about that and want to do something about it. Nevertheless, I feel like we're being asked to trust that they will use these machines nicely. And I don't feel comfortable with that, not in the climate in which we currently live today in this country. It also concerned me that his description of the lawful exercise of our First Amendment rights was described as an incident that needed to be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for letting me be here today. My name is Rivalis. I'm a student of UC Davis. I'm coming here today as a private citizen. And reading into the staff report and also into coming to the meeting here today, I had some more questions that I wanted to come and be addressed today. And the first I wanted to start with was exactly how the vehicle was exactly prescribed here. From my understanding, it was through the 1033 program. But when I read through the resolution that authorized the use or the distribution of military surplus, the resolution didn't specifically say that military technology was to be used. I would like to further elaborate on that and ask specifically, under what situation should the safety of the community of Davis be compromised to the point in which we need to use a military van in order to secure the city itself? Because from my understanding, the situation that were described earlier have been used and resolved through local law enforcement on foot and not necessarily through a military vehicle. I believe that point was elaborated earlier. And I would also like to elaborate a little further on how much communication the police department has had with the community of Davis and the city council regarding the issue, because to my understanding, the city council was not brought into authorizing the distribution of this vehicle prior to the fact that it was distributed. Last but not least, I would like to just reiterate the point that it seems kind of strange almost, because the city of Davis has had a history of just promoting a safe space and promoting community solutions and promoting authorizing resolutions against nuclear technology that would be allowed on the city of Davis. So it seemed kind of questionable. So that's all I had to say in those 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kathy Forkos, a 40-year Davis resident, and I just wanted to make a couple brief comments. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. I do wish we could see the Peacekeeper. Let's see what an armored vehicle used normally in a city, more commonly in a city, would look like. Because the description of this as just a truck, it's not just a truck. It elicits a completely different response, just viscerally to me, a gut reaction. It's designed for landmines. It's overkill. Let's dial it back. Let's get a budget for a city-appropriate armored vehicle. I understand the need for that. And I just wanted to point out that you're saying that basically that this vehicle is going to be what replaces the Peacekeeper, and it is what we're going to now use to mobilize our SWAT team. That's going to be rolled out, what, a dozen times a year through the city of Davis. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't want to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Stephen Friesa. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of California, Davis, but I'm not here in any official capacity. I just wanted to first thank the police department for describing 30 years of safe operation without an MRAP. And it's interesting that they were not able to provide evidence of officer safety issues, although they argued that this was a point for which they needed this vehicle. I grew up in a rural part of Appalachia, and so pictures of guns don't scare me. I would encourage you to take a class in rhetoric, because fear is not an effective tool unless you don't have anything real to say. But I'm here tonight to ask a few questions about a resolution that was passed by this body, which is 933. It permitted the city police department to take advantage of the Department of Defense Program 1033, which grants gently used military weapons to civilian police departments. And specifically, I want to know whether this body still considers everyone in this room an enemy combatant. Is this town in the throes of a civil war or repelling an invading force? Or perhaps the city is disproportionately affected by gun violence, which it is apparently not. Are cyclists in town now in possession of armor-piercing bicycles? If, as I suspect, the answer to these questions is no, I would ask the council to reclassify me as a taxpayer and a citizen and not as an enemy combatant, and repeal the resolution 933. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Katie Dynarski, and I'm a doctoral researcher at UC Davis, but I'm here today as a private citizen. So, like many people in this room, I question whether it's appropriate or necessary for our police force to have military capability, especially in a time where the militarization of the police is of national concern. It is one thing to prepare for the worst, but our police force is not a military, and it's entirely different to outfit our town as if we're an active war zone, and those that are being fought against are, by definition, our own citizens. Such equipment only heightens tensions between police and the rest of the public, which I don't find constructive, and engaging in an arms race against such weaponry is only going to heighten tensions and potentially make the situation worse. I think that pretending that the MRAP is a solution to these problems masks real issues here, such as insufficient mental health care and poor gun control. And realistically, I would like to question how the MRAP actually solves the problems pointed out by the police department. In terms of safety, I personally do not feel safer when I see a massive armored vehicle used by the military rolling down my own street. Bringing out bigger weaponry is the exact opposite of de-escalation tactics that are recommended by the Marines, and I don't see why they are appropriate in Davis. Further, I question the ability of the MRAP to safely deliver and quickly deliver medics into gunfire situations. And in terms of dangerous searches, which it seems like could be a big use for this vehicle, are you going to drive it into somebody's house? I really don't see how this is appropriate, necessary, or even tactically useful. And I think that pretending that such equipment is necessary is some kind of militaristic fantasy, and I personally don't feel comfortable with my town engaging in such fantasies. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Scott Ragsdale, and I am a longtime resident of Davis. Yes, I respect the rationale to put forward by our police department for the infrequent use of this military armored vehicle. I would personally like to see this vehicle used to help enforce reasonable gun laws that are boastfully ignored by gun manufacturers and by segments of an increasingly aggressive and well-armed public. But even that attractive possibility is not enough to convince me that this is a necessary military vehicle. Arming the Davis Police Force with a military vehicle is a statement that reaches well beyond Davis. It is a statement that even in a relatively safe and well-democratized town of Davis, the police are not safe to enforce the law without immense show of force. This is not a statement that it reflects reality, and I ask that you not support it. The presence of this armored vehicle, it comes at a cost of demonizing the Davis public. The vehicle's potential use in public demonstration by default characterizes those demonstrations as public enemy number one. The presence of this military vehicle in our community that prides itself on the regular and well-considered use of dissent it characterizes us as wanton and dangerous. The statement that this military vehicle is free is false, as the debt incurred by the military for billions of dollars used to purchase U.S. military equipment over the last 20 years, those debts are not paid. The debt used to buy this and all of our other military vehicles will be paid by our tax dollars for many decades to come. This military vehicle serves to remind us of this debt, and it is not free.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome, Alan.
Alan Miller, and yes, the lawn signs are on the way. This isn't personal. I have had nothing but great service from the Davis Police Department. In fact, I called them 2 hours ago because there was a guy in the bushes 30 feet from my front door. Great service. I did not think of Ferguson when I heard about this. I thought about 11/18/2011. And the fact that riot gear approaching, military approaching, as opposed to a human response, does not make for a good interaction, and it increases the tension. And it's become symbolic of this town. And this just ruins the symbolism completely. The other problem here is I'm not worried about you guys. I'm worried about when we get a bad leader. Like, what if Linda Katehi was mayor instead of Dan Walk? Never miss a chance to dig it in. And that's the point, because I did not blame the police department primarily for what happened on 11/18. I blamed bad political leaders who made a police tactical decision which was ridiculous and forced the police department to do it. And that could happen with a city as well if a protest appeared to get out of hand. So I would like to say that I do not suggest that you take this vehicle and send it out of Davis. I demand it. I demand it!
Thank you, Alan. I didn't realize you had something on the back of your shirt there, actually.
Oh dear.
Thank you. Yeah.
My name is
following that.
My name is Russellnatchez. I'm a graduate student here at Davis, and I also serve the city on the Safety and Parking Advisory Commission, although I'm not here in that capacity.
Can you state your name again for the record?
Oh, Russellnatchez. Right. I would like to say that I have been very, very impressed and very pleased with the Davis Police Department in the years that I've lived here. I've lived in many different cities, and I have never interacted with a more professional police department or a more patient police department. Nevertheless, having read the report and listened to the presentation here today, I can see that there is a tactical need for something to address this problem here. I do not think that this vehicle is the appropriate solution. And I have put together an online petition to that effect. A bit more than 250 people have signed it in the few days that it has been online, and my relatively little ability to promote it. I have the signatures and the comments here, which I will provide. I'm not so much concerned with you, the City Council, or what you, our Chief of Police, or the rest of the current serving Davis Police will do. But as was just mentioned, someday you will retire. And who will we have next, and after that, and after that? Will they be as good? I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Kay Watt, and I'm a citizen of Davis as well as a PhD student at the university, but I'm here as a private citizen. I am against the acquisition of the MRAP vehicle by the Davis Police Department. While the police may have asked for the vehicle before the events in Ferguson, the fact is that Davis as a town has already had an issue with just one police officer and one incident that has reverberated throughout the nation. And although this incident was extremely rare in the history of all of the police department here and on campus, the fact is that it had a huge effect on how people felt about the police in this town. And I personally have not had an issue with the police. I've enjoyed interacting with the police here that I have. But I do not feel safe with this tank present in the town. It seems to cause a division in the town between the police department and the citizens, one that kind of reflects the position in Iraq, where you have the people in the tank who band together and the people outside of the tank who are trying to destroy it or harm the people inside. And although these pictures of guns may display a few people who may have an issue with the police and also an issue with collecting guns, I don't think that that's solved by creating a bigger kind of like a tiger to catch the cat that's catching the mouse situation. What would be helpful is more gun control so people don't have access to this, so they don't feel the need to shoot at the police with semi-automatic rifles and things like that. The presence of such a vehicle in the future could make tense situations even more dangerous, as has been proven in Ferguson, as well as the past riots in Seattle in 1999. There's a quote from the Seattle Police Chief Norman Stamper, who was in charge of a large city but still had a horrible reaction to the riot. When cops, just like other human beings, are frightened, and sometimes they are, there's a tendency to act impulsively, which is to say, to do exactly the opposite of what they need to be doing.
I'm going to ask that you conclude.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
But you feel free to conclude your thought. You know.
I think that's a good place to leave.
Could you repeat your name, though? I didn't hear it. We're
Yeah.
trying to write names down and such.
My name is Kay Watt.
Thank you, Kay. Welcome, Jake.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Clemons. I'm a retired teacher and a 10-year Davis resident. I'm more concerned about the possible escalation of violence due to the presence of this vehicle than I am without such a thing. Its presence changes the way I feel about my community. The community I know and love does not see an MRAP as a solution. Mentioning it even remotely as an approach to dealing with those suffering mental challenges is beyond me. I'm on the side of Fort Collins, Colorado, a community whose law enforcement refused to accept one of these vehicles, indicating that their mission is built on compassionate policing, and an MRAP is not compatible with their mission. I would just simply like to see it sent back.
Thank you, Jake.
Good evening. Good evening, Dan. I'd like to thank the chief for making a great argument and thinking about how to keep Davis citizens safe every day, and also for you and all the officers putting your lives on the line to protect us all. That's something not a lot of us could identify with, and yet you do it every day. I think the question we need to be asking ourselves is, what are the tools needed to face the risks that the police department does? Dan, you and I grew up right off Sycamore. Nick Concolino's bomb squad van was there in the 80s and the 90s, and that met a specific need. When I look up here at all these dangerous weapons, I have to ask myself, where is the rocket-propelled grenade that this vehicle is designed to absorb? I don't see that as a threat here in Davis. Thank you.
Good to see you, too.
Hello, my name is Courtney Lafrene, and I am the Vice President of the National Lawyers Guild chapter at the UC Davis School of Law, and I actually am here in that capacity. We at the National Lawyers Guild would like to urge the Davis Police Department and Davis City Council to return all equipment acquired through the Military 1033 program, including the MRAP, to the Department of Defense. While it may be hard to turn down free equipment, we at the law school are taught to be wary of anything that looks too good to be true. We also would remind anybody who feels this to be too radical of a solution that any movement has to have a first. And it would be great to see Davis on the front lines against police militarization. So, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. I'm Roberta Milstein. I'm a professor at UC Davis. I'm also on the Open Space and Habitat Commission, but that's not really relevant here, so I'm just here to speak as a private citizen. And I'm going to be brief because I'm going to be pretty much repeating things that other people have said. I feel like we're on a slippery slope here, and it's a slippery slope within Davis, from pepper spray to the MRAP to I don't know what, as well as a nationwide slippery slope, and I'm concerned about that. And the reason I'm concerned about that is that, well, when I look at those guns, I feel a little bit of fear, and I feel like maybe I'm being asked to feel fear, and I don't want to feel fear. But if anything makes me feel fear more than those guns, it's the MRAP itself, the presence of that, the thought of that rolling down the street or rolling on campus or dealing with a situation where my students might be involved, and that concerns me. So I don't want to feel fear. I don't want to feel like I'm the enemy. I want to feel as though the police are there to serve and protect me, as they always have, and I don't feel that this serves and protects me. This makes me scared. This makes me feel like an enemy, and I don't want that. I want this out of Davis. Thanks.
Thank you, Roberta. Welcome.
Hi, my name is David Abramson. I grew up here in Davis, and I won't repeat the things that everyone else has said because I agree with pretty much all of them. I don't want this thing in our community. I think growing trend of militarization of police is a huge problem in our country. And when I turn on the news or look at some story online, where do I see these things show up? Peaceful protests. And I mean, I appreciate Police Chief with his word that it won't show up at these things, but just history has shown time and time again, whether it's in Davis or Oakland or Ferguson or Egypt, all across the world, peaceful protests are being crushed by militarization of police and mishandling of this amount of force and power, and I don't think they're trained well enough to deal with these situations like that. And also, just one other thing is that everyone in this line that spoke from our community is against this. And if we live in a democracy, then that should speak louder than everything. We have the power as the people to decide what we want in our community, and I feel a bit betrayed without having a say in it and without all of you having a say. So I'd like to see actionable steps to remove this thing, or I really like the idea of turning it into art. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name's Alicia Matson.
You want to pull the microphone down a little bit?
That would help.
It's kind of
I'm
blocking your
vertically
face.
challenged,
Perfect.
sorry. In a town very familiar with reuse and recycle mentality, and in the face of doing more with less money, our police department was rather smart in the way in which they acquired this. I hope the mayor's quote in the Davis Enterprise about keeping it in the garage was in reference to his hopes we'll never need it. However, in the interim, the kids at our elementary schools would be all aflutter, just like they are with the canine and the helicopters and everything else, with this law enforcement display as a static. They can reach out and touch it, and what better way to take the fear, unnecessary fear, out of their association with such a piece of equipment? The argument against this particular item seems to stem from an idea that it may be used to intimidate our citizens at some point in time. Our leaders, our current leaders in law enforcement, are more like chess players, and they do everything possible to de-escalate situations. A couple of years ago, a young man stole some items from a UC Davis lab and accidentally blew up his arm. He had more of this substance in his apartment. Had the explosion been larger or had more explosions occurred, a piece of equipment such as this would have had an easier time getting the other innocent inhabitants of that complex out safely. And had it been a static display at a school, the kids in that development would have known it was there to save, serve, and protect them. We've never had a Davis police officer run at us with their cars. It's ridiculous to think they'd do so with this piece of equipment. Remember, they are members of our community also. They are a part of us. We can have an opinion, but we should ask questions before we give quotes to the media. We should be thankful that although we can't imagine a need or use for this, we have highly trained individuals who can, and they're protecting us. MRAP or no MRAP, law enforcement, leaders, can hurt us, cause damage. We are very blessed, we are very fortunate, and I'm very thankful.
Thank you. Welcome, Tia.
Good evening and welcome back all. I'm Tia Will, long-term Davis resident. I'm a doctor with an interest in public health and safety, and I'm here to present a different view. We've heard lots of people talk about their feelings, and you all know I have strong feelings and I mirror most of the feelings here. I want the vehicle gone, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here this evening to talk about process. I want to stress the importance of a proactive, collaborative, fact and evidence-based decision-making process. The acquisition of any major item of equipment to be used in the public realm should be made in collaboration with the city leaders, not universally based on the feelings of any one particular department. Acquisition having implications for the entire community and which will be funded by the entire community should be thoroughly reviewed in advance, with at a minimum a presentation of the evidence for need, compatibility with community goals, cost-benefit ratio, pros and cons, and comparison with other alternatives. As our City Council, if you feel that all these factors have been addressed adequately with facts and supportive data, then perhaps it would be reasonable to keep this vehicle. If you do not believe you have received such data, then I recommend that we should divest it now. But the much more important point is that I'm going to urge that all such major decisions in the future be made in an evidence-based collaborative process done prospectively, not retroactively. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Martha?
Hi, I'm Martha Beatley. I want to kind of underscore what Tia said. I think there's been a mistake made, a mistake in procedure, because we were not able to participate in this decision at all, and then a mistake in judgment, because I don't think we have the support of the community behind this decision. And so I'm asking you to correct the error and figure out a way to get this thing back. A military vehicle does not facilitate conversation or build a working community.
Thank you, Martha. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ben Cavassi. I'm an Iraq combat veteran. I've been to Mosul, Taji, Basra, and Baghdad, and I've seen these vehicles very closely. I was deployed in a combat zone for a year.
If you could speak closer to the microphone, then.
You know, these powerful weapons, we call them small arms. These are small arms, and the MRAP is not designed to be dealing with small arms. The MRAP is designed to be dealing with RPG, mine, and bombs. So I think that this is, although I appreciate the safety that this is going to offer us, I don't think that's the right tool. I think that the City of Davis has to perhaps invest more in purchasing personal protection gears like Kevlars, like steel plates or ceramic plates, but bringing a combat-style vehicle to an area where we don't have any insurgents, we don't have any bombs, we don't have any RPGs, is not the right solution. The right solution will be, you know, to have smaller vehicles, perhaps. I'm sure there are other personal protection devices or personal protection or armored vehicles that are more suited for this job. This brings a spirit of combat and war to the City of Davis, which is a very peaceful place. Rest assured, I've been to Baghdad. I know how it feels. Finally, it alienates the police, which I trust and I really like. It alienates the police force from me as a private citizen who's unarmed. And finally, we talk about the military. You know, there's been shootings in the military. There was a shooting in the Navy, there was a shooting in the Army. In the Army, there's the shooting. They don't go get an MRAP from the motor pool. It's not the right solution. And finally, the parts of this vehicle cost a lot of money. So I don't think that's the right solution, finally. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Pauline Mayam, researcher at UC Davis. So sorry for my English. I'm French, actually. I'm from Normandy. You all know Normandy because of the Second World War. In Normandy, we have tanks everywhere. And they've been standing there for 70 years. And we saw the tank, okay, it's like in the landscape, it's fine, but it's like a memory. You could not imagine what I felt when I read the newspaper last week in the SACB. Like, I saw the picture, I was, what, like, really? Davis? You must be kidding. First, like, I'm completely against about militarization of police. It's like two different stories. Second, I couldn't hear anything in this presentation that, like, justifies the use of a searchlight truck. And, well, finally, I think it's a really bad thing, like, for the image of Davis. That's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Juan Miranda. I'm a PhD student here at UC Davis. And I want to echo what teachers, lawyers, people from the community say. I don't want to repeat. You want to go home, I'm sure. But we can, even if we look at the images, I want to say thank you for the presentation. There is military weapons there. And they are causing problems already. So I would ask you to please return this vehicle back to, it doesn't even belong to Iraq. It shouldn't exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Karen Newton. First, I wanted to thank Mason for his comments. I thought those statistics are really important. And secondly, this is quite a week to find this out, because every time we've turned on the news, we've seen the streets of Ferguson and how they have been militarized. And we've learned, at least I learned this week, about the national program to militarize our cities. So it's not just so much whether this is necessary in Davis. It's not necessary in Oakland. It's not necessary in LA. It's not necessary in our country. And it's a very graphic example of the war being brought home against us. So I suggest if Fort Collins really did, send theirs back and it's starting a movement, we should join. Thank you.
Thank you. Another Davis High grad.
Hi, my name is Emily Henderson. I am a registered voter in the city of Davis, and I am here tonight to ask that we take a step back. I feel like the process that was gone through to acquire this vehicle did not involve the community and did not involve, to my understanding, did not involve you, our elected leaders, and I feel very uncomfortable with that, and I think we should send it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mason, I hate to do this because I'm sitting right next to your mother, but I'm not going to allow you to comment again.
Even after everybody else goes?
You've already commented, so that's our rule. I'm sorry. But very articulate comment, but sorry.
Are you sure? Positive?
I am positive, yeah, unless my colleagues disagree with me.
Okay.
Sorry, Mason.
I don't do well.
People at home can hear.
Okay. I guess I'll struggle to make this work. Good evening. My name is Rylan Schaefer, and I'm an undergraduate at UC Davis, and I'm here in two capacities. One, as a member of the community, and two, as a representative of the ASUCD Executive Office. The president's in LA and couldn't be here tonight. I want to make 2 points. The first deals with process, but not process of acquisition. I'm upset about this. Specifically, across the street, the Phoenix Coalition and the City of Davis Police Department are holding a forum to discuss this. It's not only disrespectful to have this hearing when they're having their own, but also I think that this is more inefficient. Theirs is facilitation-based, so we can discuss it. If I had a question for the police department, I can't ask that question. This is slow, inefficient, and no offense to the previous speakers, but very repetitive. So I think that this is a poor way of discussing this issue, which is critical importance to people here. But second of all, I do want to state that the students have hesitations and in some cases are very opposed to the acquisition of this vehicle. We will not issue a formal statement until school begins. Once again, we have to go through our own formal processes, but I do want to state that the students will be in touch and they appreciate you working with us as well as the City of Davis Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle Malay. I'm going to look at this from a slightly different lens. In my 20s, I was trained as an emergency medical technician, and one of the things that was drilled into us every single class was that you never, ever went into a scene unless it was safe. Even if that meant someone died. You do not enter a scene that is not safe. So when I heard of this vehicle, I was like, oh, this is great. This is a way to sort of move safety. It can move our officers and rescue people into situations where they can, get someone out if they're hurt and they are going to be kept safe. I don't understand why there's this perception that's going to be used as a weapon. I don't see any weapons on this machine. It's a vehicle that is designed to protect people. I'm not concerned. I've lived in Davis since 1990. I'm not concerned with our police using this inappropriately. We see what happens in this town when our police use things inappropriately. They haven't even used this equipment yet, and you see the reaction from this community. That's not going to change with the council, and that's not going to change with the police force. If this vehicle was ever used inappropriately, you probably wouldn't even be able to fit enough people in this room. We can deal with it. I doubt that it's not a concern for me in this community. So, fear, everyone's talking about fear. This fear of our police force. It's like this, that's the other thing I'm not quite understanding, why we're so scared of our police owning a vehicle that offers them protection. You guys are all my Facebook friends. I'm Normal Mom here in Davis. It's an interesting dialogue with some other friends that are the same age demographic of me, having kind of like our discussion. This might be interesting for you guys to take a look at, to get a different viewpoint. Thanks.
Thanks. Let me just make a comment to the audience. You've been great so far. Just if you could just respect each speaker by being silent, I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Dan Burman. I've lived here about 20 years, and I want to thank Council Member Lucas Frerick and Mayor Dan Walk for their comments. I think it was to the Sacramento Bee saying maybe we don't need this vehicle. That's more or less what they said, as I remember. I've written each one of you city council members suggesting they turn this into a piece of public art, maybe park it somewhere by the Veterans Memorial and say, okay, we got this thing, we got this new toy, this beautiful new military toy, we decided not to use it. And we're just going to park it here to remind ourselves what we don't want to use in town. The second thing is I think we should follow the example of Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a university town, and by the way, it's a public power city, so it shows they're smart. And this is probably the first time I've been here on the city council without talking about the advantages of public ownership of electric utilities. Bye.
Thank you, sir. For Mayor, Mike Corbett.
Michael Corbett. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to start out first by thanking the Davis Police Department for doing really a wonderful job in Davis for the years I've been here. They're professional, and they've always risen to the occasion. I also think they've brought up the issue of maybe needing some equipment to deal with these kinds of situations, which obviously are a danger to them and a danger to the public, and I think that City Council would be well advised to look into those issues. But when I saw an image of this vehicle in our town, it brought up some questions in my mind that as a citizen I'd like to know, and I think if other citizens thought about it, they might want to know too. Let's say that there was some severe civil disobedience in the country, martial law, conflict beyond anything we've seen. The Davis Police Department, I really don't know what the police chief has to do. Does he answer to the citizens of Davis, to the city manager, to the mayor? Or can the federal government or state government basically say, sorry, these people work for us? I don't know if you know those questions, you may. But I think these are important questions for us to know. Just who is the authority in these kinds of severe situations? Would they be here to protect us, or would they be here to maybe control us? And, or be, taken to another location. I just think the citizens of Davis should know that. The image of this vehicle brought those questions to my mind. I hadn't thought too much about that. But when I see a vehicle like that in our city, that's what comes to mind. I do think that it'd be good to help them get what they need to protect themselves and others, but I would really like to know the answer to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Tom.
Thank you. My name is Tom Hagler. So I think that one of the issues here is one of process. And it begins with the chief's presentation, where he outlined what he felt was a serious public safety issue. It was on that basis that he acted. And he apparently, from what he said, he made the decision to go ahead and make the request for the vehicle. Now, it's unclear how that could happen with the chief, who's been in town as long as he has, that he would not know the community better than he demonstrated to us. Now, what is a concern is this. There's a process that he had to go through to request the vehicle. Before that took place and after it took place, how many times did he meet with the city manager? How many times did he express in those managerial meetings his concerns about this public safety issue? How many times when he talked to the city council members on the street or at a meeting and they said, "Chief, how's it going? What's up?" Did he say, "We have a serious public safety issue and I think we need to get this military vehicle to safeguard us"? So it's unclear to me and I'm confused by it. And I'm not comfortable with it at all. So I think that the process then either existed and it broke down, or it didn't exist. I think those matters need to be addressed. And so I think the two things that can be done is this. First, the city manager can work out a proposal how he can meet with the chief regularly and discuss public safety issues. And then the council can also work out a process where they can meet regularly with the city manager and with the chief and discuss these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. Welcome, sir.
Council. My name is Robert Canning. I live in Old East Davis. 3 quick points. In my day job, I work for another criminal justice organization called the Department of Corrections, and over the last 8 months or so, I've been involved in an effort to dial back the use of force in our department. And it's I think, a good example, although not completely analogous to the police actions on the street out here. But large agencies who use force can dial it back. They can find other ways to deal with situations rather than throwing grenades of pepper spray and things like that. So that's my first point. The second point is Chief Black gave us several examples going back to the 80s of situations where there were dire consequences if the police hadn't acted. All of them were done without the use of these kinds of vehicles, and in fact were done safely and with no loss of life. And so I think that we should continue in that vein. And finally, I'd like to read a quote. This is on the First Amendment side from the former chief of the police in Seattle. Quote, "What happened in Seattle in 1999 was a police overreaction which I presided over. It was the worst mistake of my career," Chief Stamper said. "We used chemical agents, a euphemism for tear gas, against nonviolent and essentially non-threatening protesters, the natural consequences of which are that we were the catalyst for heightened tension and conflict rather than peacekeepers, or for that matter, even peacemakers. It's a lesson, unfortunately, that American law enforcement in general has not learned." Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm John Troidel. I'm going to read my little statement. I think we should step back, as several have suggested, and be concerned not only by the militarization of the police in general, but by the militarization of the public. Perhaps we should put on the table the removal of all weapons from the city of Davis.
Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Colleen Stanter. I'm a resident and a voter, and when I saw that we had this thing, my first thought was, what do they think we're going to do? Seriously, are they expecting that we're going to be making mines and like planting them in Davis? Why do we have this thing unless it's okay to use it? I don't know. So I would just like to say, let's send it back. Let's not have a military vehicle in the middle of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Rodney Robinson. There's a time during every meeting for the city manager to, praise the council and the community of, what's going on, and I think that this item should have been brought up years ago when it was first, the processes began to acquire this device, which takes quite a long while, by the way. I'm not sure if this device actually has depleted uranium in it, around it, surrounding it, and protecting it, but many of these MRAP vehicles are armored with depleted uranium, and that would be not really healthy to have running around our community or even in the police station garage. I think that this is, a wrong and bad decision by the chief of police and the city manager to have gone ahead with this without being properly directed by the council, and I would hope that you folks would do the right thing and send it back.
Thank you, Rodney. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sean. I'm a graduate student here at UC Davis and a member of the International Youth and Students for Social Equality. I'd like to begin by affirming what's already been said by those in opposition to the acquisition of the MRAP by the Davis Police Department. I feel it's necessary to tie together what's happening here with broader processes, specifically the connection between Ferguson, Missouri, and the implications for the broader working class. The military-style police occupation of Ferguson, Missouri has demonstrated the readiness of a local police force in the United States to respond to domestic social unrest. In this case, protests triggered by the August 9th police murder of unarmed teenager Michael Brown with military tactics and weaponry. Within 24 hours of his death, hundreds of vehicles, including at least one turreted armored MRAP vehicles, normally used in Afghanistan and Iraq, were summoned to the scene. Police arrested more than 50 people, injured many more with tear gas and rubber bullets, assaulted and jailed journalists, and implemented a no-fly zone banning media helicopters. The event in Ferguson did not arise overnight, though. Over a period of decades, federal governments such as the 1033 program have been implemented to equip local police forces with military gear and incentivize its use. These programs have been vastly expanded under the Obama administration. About 500 law enforcement agencies have been given MRAPs through this program, just as our city here. All of these measures are aimed at militarizing local police and establishing the framework for the direct intervention of the military itself in domestic affairs, using the war on terror as the pretext for the brutal repression of any domestic opposition to the policies of austerity. The events in Ferguson have revealed the brutality of the state and should be seen as a warning to the entire working class. It is isolated and held, the ruling class is isolated and held in contempt by the broad masses of the people. All of its official institutions are increasingly discredited, and its immediate reaction to any expression of social opposition is to smash it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Burkhardt. I live in Davis. I'd like to express something that I didn't hear expressed before, which is that it seems to me that the decision to buy this piece of equipment was done amongst very few people, almost secretly. There was very little involvement except the few who made the decision 6 months after the pepper spray incident here, which was in November. This was ordered in May the following year. And that tendency was carried out here today before us in these surprising and very telling demonstration of visuals about the here to explain the program, where there's no visual of the actual item. I mean, that struck me as very odd. And also, there's no like charts, flow charts, or graphics explaining this is how it would work. You know, in this situation we would do X, then this would happen. And what I want to say to you, that this secretive approach, on the day that the item is actually used and brought out, we're the folks that are reading the paper and paying attention, okay? We represent, you know, for each of us, there's 100 at least, several hundred people in your town who aren't paying attention. But the day that that thing comes out and the pictures are on YouTube, whatever dire situation it's meant to address is just going to be, it'll be gasoline thrown on the situation. You're going to have this giant barbecue thing of tension, people complaining, people on the streets. You're going to actually create the situation that you're attempting to address, or at least that they've said they're attempting to address. And I'm saying it's going to be a terrific surprise. Best to imagine ahead what that's going to be like and put the brakes on the whole thing.
Thank you. Did you want to speak at public comment? I wasn't sure.
No, I'm thinking about it.
You're the last one. Oh, there's maybe two more.
Caboose, everything has been said. Anyway, my name is Stephen, and I've been around Davis since about 1974 or 5. And I've been a 43-year member of the Screen Actors Guild, so I'm used to working from a script, and I have no script tonight. And so you won't understand my babbling unless I have something to read from. So I'm going to make it brief, mainly because everybody that has been here tonight has said everything that I would say. And I think this is the wrong machine for a town like Davis, or any town like Davis. And it needs to go. And if the police department has an unknown $6,000 of money in their slush fund to pay for the transportation here, by God, and I like Mr. Miller, by the way, he's got potential for acting. Yeah. Miller, was that right? Yeah. They've got money to send it back. And that's, you know, it's appalling. I'm appalled and I'm insulted, and it is a bit frightening. And I hope that you folks can see this, you're listening to what the people have to say here tonight, and that you act on it. And when I say act on it, send it back immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This will be our final public comment. You have the closing statement here.
Thank you, sir. My name's Jim Hechtel. I live in the slums of South Davis. I'm a resident 28 years. I'm not a professional student, and I covet no titles. I want to thank you for having this conversation tonight. Up until last week, nobody in this room, except for our public service professionals, were aware that the city of Davis had access to an armored vehicle. That we're even having this conversation is frustrating to me, because no one was aware. That's a testament to Chief Black and Captain and Assistant Chief Pytel, I'm sorry you got promoted, and their administration and their officers on their proactive community policing approach to serving this community. It's also a testament to prior chiefs, administrations, and officers that have served this community honorably. This is an out-of-the-box thinking and brilliant thinking on my part, in my mind, by the chief to replace a piece of equipment that is dated, worn out, and tired. It's a zero-cost solution to a potential problem that hopefully we won't need. No amount of proclamations, declarations, or musings from the city's laurel poet is going to protect the community and our officers in a time of need. The current piece of equipment is 70s vintage, obsolete, and tired. It's nothing more than a dusty paperwork in the city yard or behind the police department. These firearms are on our city streets right now. Without an armored vehicle, the cruisers that these gentlemen serve in are no match. Yes, it's overkill. Yes, it will repel a rocket-propelled grenade, but it is a tool, and a tool only, to benefit the citizens of Davis. Yes, it's overkill, but I'd rather have something and not need it than need something and not have it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close public comment.